little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world. At breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome, everybody, back to Breakfast with Bob, our Not Quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Master Spas. As fuels go longer, Hoka Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Zoot, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, and, of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, she is getting ready for the Western States 100 coming up in just a few days. Nicole Bitter joins us. Nicole, how are you?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm honored.
Oh, it's such a treat to get to chat with you. And it was great to spend time with you over on beautiful Catalina Island. That was really a ton of fun. What did you think of Catalina, first of all? Was that your first time there?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I was wowed. I definitely want to go back. So my husband and I were just it was such beautiful scenery and the trails. We definitely need to run one of the races out there.
So you got into running seventh grade. A gym teacher watched you run the mile and felt you had talent. Had you done other sports before that?
Thanks. Yes. Well, so I grew up, my mom was a principal of an elementary school. And so the first sport that I took up was actually figure skating. So one of her teachers was a figure skating coach. So right off the bat, I was figure skating. But then, I think all summers when my mom would work, my sister and I were about the same age. So we would kind of take on any sports camp imaginable. So we played tennis and did swimming and soccer and gymnastics. And so I never had trained for running before seventh grade, but I think I fell into it naturally just after trying out so many other sports over the years.
And started in cross country, and you ran at William Friend High School in Illinois, and then at Northwestern, which was
Yes.
actually, I grew up in Wilmette, so that was like right
Nice.
on, yeah, right, very close
Yes.
by. And now at that point, were you running seriously, or it was just sort of for enjoyment?
Yeah, pretty seriously. By the time I graduated from high school, I was recruited and was competing collegiately in cross country. We didn't have a track team at Northwestern, so it was more of a club sport, which was
Yeah.
nice because it was you had a bit more time to focus on schoolwork. So yeah, it was pretty competitive, and so I ran all of my time collegiately.
Yeah.
And then essentially I was finished and went to law school. And while I was in law school in Waco, Texas, I picked up trail running. So we had some beautiful trails, oddly enough, down there.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started, really getting into the sport.
And you moved to Dallas and introduced to trail running and ultra running. Uh,
Yes.
your first ultra, 2012 60K, Palo Duro Canyon, and you win it. It was a nighttime race.
Yes. Yes.
That's crazy. Was it something where you just love this right away? Because it usually takes people a while before they run at night. They don't start out doing that.
Yeah. Well, in Texas, it's so interesting because it's so hot at that time of the year. So it was just an opportunity to get in a long run, but I just happened upon it and decided to try it out. And I just started running with a couple of folks and found that I really enjoyed it. The time went by pretty quickly. So I think I was hooked and just kept from there, taking on ultra running. It was kind of like by day, I sit on my butt so much right in front of my computer, like I think many of us do. So it was just a nice opportunity to have a chance to go explore the world in some respect through running.
So in 2015, you smashed the North American trail record at Rocky Racoon, 100-miler in Huntsville, Texas, 14:22 and 8:30. That was the USA Track and Field 100-mile championships. 8:37 a mile for a 100-miler. That's unbelievable. We broke the course record 35 minutes, beat the second place woman by over an hour. Obviously, you have some major talent at that. That was 2015, also USATF Female Ultra Trail Runner of the Year. So that was a pretty special year, and that's not that long after you got into it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was floored. I never would have thought I would have any type of North American record. So yeah, it was incredible. It was a great day, and I felt honored to have achieved that. Again, just not anything I was expecting.
What was the first, was when you were sixth at Western States, was that 2015 or was that 16?
I've been sixth twice in
Hmm.
2015, 2017, and then in 2019 I was seventh.
There you go. So very consistent.
Mhm.
And that, so the first time there, 20 hours, 19 minutes. What's your record there now? Your
I think it's just right around 19 hours. So I've run consistently several times there. So uh yeah, I seem to like that spot. I need to
but,
crack into the 18 hours, I think.
well, and for people who don't know, that race has 18,000 feet of gain, 23,000 feet of down, and it can be hot, it can be cold, all the same day, right? And
Yeah.
this year, like in other years you've raced there, there has been a ton of snow. Do you
Yes, the
prepare
this
differently when you know it's going to be like that?
good question. So it's going to, the race starts in Tahoe.
Yeah.
And so what's to your point, there's been a lot of record snowfall this year. So I think I ran in similar conditions in 2017, where there was a lot of snow still up at the top. And so the challenge is it's you can't really train for that,
No.
especially I live in Austin, Texas, but even unless you move up there and are just trudging through the snow, I don't think it's very effective. So my biggest takeaway is just being patient, not going out too fast, and just being prepared to kind of slip around for a bit and
Yes.
just stay focused on when it clears up in 8 or so miles, then get ready to race.
And nutrition wise, you've been an S Fuels athlete for a while, and a lot of people who are doing endurance are more carb based. Talk a little bit about your nutrition plan and how it's changed over the years.
Yeah, it's funny. So my husband has always been more on the high fat diet, but interestingly, I started to eat a bit differently towards the end of college, just where I found that I performed better with having a more high fat and higher protein right before race. So I started eating salmon versus having that traditional pasta dinner and things.
Right.
So I've kind of always skewed more in that direction myself naturally, almost not really realizing as precisely what I was doing. So my husband's much more dialed in with some aspects than I am. I've just found what has worked for me over the years, but I definitely am more of a traditional high fat diet. And I think as I've evolved, I learn a lot from my husband. In terms of the S Fuels product, the Race Plus is what I use on race day, and I find that's effective. I also like the Prime, just for purposes of that extra caffeine. So that's what I usually go to. And then I also just take in food from the aid stations as I see fit.
Yeah.
I take in about 40 grams an hour.
So guilty pleasures, or did you bring a bunch of different stuff with, not knowing what your stomach's going to feel like?
Yeah, usually I kind of just gravitate to what looks good. Certain races I've really liked avocado. If I've raced in, I've been fortunate to do some races overseas in Europe, and I eat bread and cheese, right? So just, whatever looks good on the day, and I kind of go with it. I'm usually pretty fortunate. I have a pretty strong stomach. Um, but yeah, I think it kind of, I think it evolves depending on the day.
Have you stayed pretty injury free throughout this career? Because it's been about a decade now.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate. So I'm 41 now, so I'm definitely getting up there in terms of age. But yeah, I've been fortunate. So I've never had like a stress fracture or anything like that. So I've been pretty fortunate over the course of like 30 years of running. That I definitely had injuries though along the way, just little
Sure.
things.
How have you had to change? How have you had to adapt to age?
Yeah, I think
Strength
over the
training?
last couple of years, I'm really starting to notice it a bit more, and I'm just
Mhm.
trying to train smarter versus harder, right? So just making sure when I need the extra recovery, I'm taking it. I also have started to do a bit more cross training as
Mm,
opposed to having quite as many miles. It used to be kind of in the afternoon, I would get out for a run on most days. Now I'm starting to kind of forego that, maybe do the elliptical, maybe even go rollerblading, just to something that's like a little lower
yeah.
impact. And I think I'm still able to perform well. It's just lowering the mileage on the body, which is good.
What makes Western states so special?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I always am kind of grappling with that myself because this is my eighth time running the race, so just a lot there. I think for me, it's just the compilation of memories. So I have so many memories over the course of the various years about my pacers and my crew and my friends, like who is out there, my competition, who oftentimes are my friends, right? We've
Right.
run over the years so many times. And I think for me, it's just like the challenge for myself. Like, can I put together a race that I consider more of like a masterpiece, right? Like I think I still have more to give at that race. And that for me is what makes it special. It's like I keep going back because I think I can do better. And so I just like to have that challenge. And then of course you're amidst such good competition when you're there, right?
Right.
It's kind of like the national championships of North American ultra running. So, on any given day, you're going to face some of the best competition from around the world, which it's pretty cool to be able to be out there.
Does that course, is there a course that suits you best? A course that has been your favorite?
Yeah, I do a bit better on flatter, faster races simply
Mm,
because I'm able to train for it more. Living in Austin, Texas, we don't
right.
have, the mountains, right? So I've never really lived anywhere with a ton of mountains to train on. So I'd say like Javelina 100 in Phoenix or Rocky Racoon in Huntsville. Those courses probably suit me a bit better, but certainly Western States has the competition. So I go back for that reason.
When you plan your like, what will be the rest of your season after Western States?
Yeah, I think I want to try and do a race, another international race. So I really like to use running as a way to see the world because
Yeah.
again, I don't know how many more years I will have that opportunity. So I may do a race in Thailand. Last year I went to South Africa. Unfortunately I got injured and I wasn't able to run, but I would like to go to one of those locations and um, do another race just for the experience and check out a different culture.
So obviously Javelina is one of those that suits you well. You won it in 2021, and in 2022, what'd you get, second there?
Yeah.
You got second there. So that obviously suits you well. And this year, what you did, the Bandera 100K, you got second there. So it seems like you're getting better. You feel that way?
Oh, I don't know. I think I've had some good results recently,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah.
great. So I feel like I'm on an upward trajectory, which is nice. So maybe training smarter versus harder is paying off.
Yeah, that inline skating is helping out.
Yeah, exactly. Rollerblading, bringing back the 80s or 90s.
What's been your favorite win?
Um, Gosh, that's a good question. Probably Rocky Raccoon when I set that record, just because I
Yes.
never would have believed that that was even in my wheelhouse. So that's probably it.
Rocky Racoon. That was your North American trail record. Yeah.
Yeah.
14:22. I mean, it's unbelievable how fast. How much is it, do you feel, with the plated shoes? I know it's made a huge difference on the roads. Has it made as
Yeah.
much of a difference on the trails?
That's interesting. It hasn't, but there are starting to be carbon shoes that we use for trail running, which I maybe they're hush hush at Ultra, but they might be a prototype in the works. And I may be wearing those at Western States. I like how they feel, but I don't think they necessarily have the impact on performance. But I'm curious to see how that shakes out as time goes on.
So as somebody who's living in a hot part of the country, dealing with cold and altitude and things like that, when you go to Western states, how do you deal with that? Do you dress in layers? How do you prepare?
Yeah, I've never run Western on a particularly cold year. My husband ran a couple years before my first time, and that was a year where I think they had hail up in
Oh,
Tahoe. But I've never experienced a cold year there over my 8 years. So I always cheer for the warm weather and I usually luck out. That being said, as the race goes on, it definitely does get extremely warmer right in the canyons. So usually I put a lot of ice in my hydration vest and just
mm.
all over, make sure to just stay completely cool. But yeah, just with all races, I've run races in like negative temperatures, actually in Texas one year at Bandera. And I think it's just problem solving, right? Just being comfortable with being uncomfortable, but just trying to solve on that particular day, even if it's not something that you had the opportunity to train for.
Anytime somebody's an endurance athlete, there's highs and lows that go along with that. What's been a situation during a race where you were like, okay, this is about as bad as it gets?
Yeah, the funny thing for me that stands out is it's not an ultra race actually. It's a race, it was a marathon in Dallas, Texas. And for whatever reason, I had just
White Rock?
started, yeah, the White Rock Marathon. Yeah. So I was out there and I don't remember what year it was. I remember I had just probably graduated law school. I don't think I was like running to the same extent yet. And I just signed up because I wanted to do the marathon. And I went out there and it was pouring rain. And I
Oh,
remember I was just getting drenched. And I remember stopping to go to the bathroom and I was just in a porta potty and I was like, I should just stay here. It's not raining in here. It's nice. I'm comfortable. But I remember thinking, oh, I gotta leave this porta potty. So I don't know. That was like a low for me. And I'll always remember that for whatever reason.
I had one hypothermic experience, and it was in Boston a number of years ago. We had pouring rain, and I'm in my Elvis outfit running the race. And of course, I don't want to cover up my Elvis out with something warm or something that keeps the rain off, because that takes away. Then you're not Elvis. And
Yeah.
I was at a point running along where I think I'm doing okay, and when somebody runs by you and goes, "Are you okay?" You realize you're like weaving and realizing,
Yeah.
okay, that's a little bit
No.
of a problem. And when you guys are out there, something like Western States, it's pitch black. You've got your lamp. You're by yourself.
Yeah.
It's easy to get little doubts creeping up in your
Oh,
mind.
yeah. I think most of the time during ultra races, you see very big highs and very big lows. So just making sure to remind yourself that in a couple of minutes, you'll probably feel differently. So just making sure to keep going because it's easy to just dwell in those low spots.
I remember one year we had this thing. The American Medical Joggers Association took us to Western States. We ran the race in 4 days and
Oh,
camped out in between. It was like they pumped out, they have generators, we got hot showers. It was amazing. Different wine list every night. But there was the race is marked with those yellow ribbons. I don't know if
yeah,
it still is, but yellow
it
ribbons.
is.
And it's like you got yellow ribbons up here, and then you've got roots and everything else down here. And it's like if you're looking down, you could miss a turn.
Yes.
Has that happened?
Oh yeah, you can easily get lost. My first year, Western States is marked pretty well, but
Yeah.
definitely on other courses. In 2015, I did take a wrong turn and had to retract my steps a bit. But yeah, you have to be really careful on those courses because that's what's challenging about trail. You can really miss things.
So do you and Zach train together?
We do. We run together occasionally. I have to now start out a little earlier most mornings, so we don't run together as much as we would like. But we also have a new addition to our family. Her name is Minnie. She's a year and a half old Australian Shepherd, and so she is every day she jumps out of bed like ready to go. So she no matter like what time it is, like whatever, if I have to start at 4:30, Minnie is ready to go. So she is probably at this point my number one training buddy.
Love it. And now you still practicing law?
I am, yeah. So I work at a consulting company and I am all focused on compliance.
So I bet the balance is probably good, right? Rather than feeling
Yeah.
you're totally entrenched in running and just if you're only as good as your last run. Whereas if you've got a real job, then the running it's fun.
Yeah, for me, it really works. I mean, I just try to the term balance is challenging, right? Like there
Of
are
course.
always periods where you're going to have to kind of fluctuate in terms of what you're concentrating on. But I do think having my job is just a blessing for me because I do think, to your point, I would fixate on certain things with running. And so, you can't, for me, running much more than 100 to 125 miles in a very big week, that's pretty much all you can do. So that's, how many hours a week. I can fit that in with my full-time job and it works. Um, I'm sure it's harder with like the triathlon where you have to dedicate so many hours, but
Yeah.
with running, I think it's doable.
100 to 125 miles a week. And knowing that, okay, next week I got to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. But again, it's my mileage has declined a bit since I've been older, since I'm getting
So
older.
I only did that Western States thing one time where we did basically a marathon a day for 4 days. But
Yeah.
anytime somebody says, "What's your biggest running week?" I always go, "Oh, I did 100. I had 100 my week."
Yeah, that is a big week though. That's awesome that you got to do that. I've not heard that that was something that was ever offered.
I think they only did it a couple years, but it was the coolest experience ever. But you're running. There was only like 20 or 30 of us, and they seriously they transported the tents every night, and you sat out at this beautiful table, and they had a chef, and they had different wine every night. It was definitely the
That's
way to do it.
awesome.
Way better than what you guys
Yeah.
did, right?
Yeah, yeah. Another one, I don't know if you've heard of UTMB, that race in Europe. I've done that
Yes,
in 2015 as well. And I've always thought to myself, I want to go back and do it over like 5 or 6 days, right? And just check out the scenery because it's so beautiful there.
that's Mont Blanc, right?
Yes,
And it's 150 miles or something
it's
like that.
104.
104.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. And they've got the whole series, right? The whole
Oh
UTMB series.
yeah, there are
Is that
so many different races
Yeah,
now offered under UTMB. So you can kind of go all around the world and run UTMB races.
which I bet you'd love to do.
Yes, that's on my list.
I love it. Nicole, thank you so much for taking time. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully 50K 50 mile next Catalina in next January.
Thanks. Oh no, I think Zach and I are definitely in. We would love to go back.
I love it. Nicole Bitter has been our guest again, and good luck this weekend. What's the goal?
Thanks. I really want to get in the top 10. So if I can do that again, that is a win for me.
Love it. Nicole Bitter has been a guest again. Breakfast with Bob, Not Quite Kona edition. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much.